Welcome back to the Nullified Tech channel on YouTube, where Kahuna and I have got the TNT takes for you on the Challenge World Championship episode 10. That's right, I'm your host, Chris. And with me again today is my co-host, Kahuna, who have been, I feel like, Kahuna, you've been wanting to chat to me all week since you've watched this episode. You've been trying to message me, and I'm like, no information. Let's
spoilers.
leave it for the podcast. Yeah, no spoilers. Leave it for the podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. We can make that bacon now. Make the bacon that Troy and Darrell promise. And
it's your turn. It's your turn. I've already made you bacon.
Yeah, that's right. It's my turn to make the bacon. Let's get it done.
What a great start to the episode. Obviously, with we're both big fans of Darrell and Kiki. Their partnership this season has been something. It's been a little bit of a bright spark, I feel like, this season. And seeing them come back, celebrating their win, was really fun to see. The interaction between Darrell and Troy, you can see there's a bit of a friendship there. There's a little bit of jokiness. We get to see a little bit more of that, which, I enjoyed seeing so early on. But right from the start here, Kiki has got her back against the wall, and she knows that that most of the people there don't really want her in the game. And she's aware that Troy's probably her only friend in the game at this point.
Yeah, and Kiki's probably not really sure what she's done to get into that position, except for, avoid the... or maybe not avoid necessarily, but not being involved in the scheming and the alliance, back channeling, politicking, whatever you want to call it. Kiki seemed to stay out of the fray, and it's not meant good for her game being put into the elimination and being the obvious choice to go down multiple times.
Yeah, let's say hello to everybody here in the live. Lovable Nikki and Chris putting in some double shifts. I've just seen them on Angel Cake Drew's Patreon. For those that don't have Drew's Patreon, I'll just give him a free plug here. In any case, it's such a cool group. He calls them the After Hours Bakery, and he puts so much work in after hours to still have a great community, a Discord, and he does these private live streams, and I've seen some of these faces already in that live stream as well. So if you can afford the $5 or whatever, I think that entry level is, I think it's well worth it with the amount of work that he puts into it. We've got Lovable Nikki calling me out about the lives that we've been doing, Kahuna, and Lovable Nikki, I'm sorry, I did not let you know that we were switching to live. Both myself and Kahuna have had it's kind of a line. It's like meant to be, we're like, yin and yang, not yin and yang. What's the right word for it? We're the perfect duo, because as soon as I had more time becoming available, you had more time becoming available, and that's why we've been doing more lives in recent times, right? It's just sort of worked out that way.
Yeah, it's kismet.
Yeah,
it's one of the ones.
It.
Yeah.
Ryan, welcome back as well. Before Danny Camp, welcome back, everyone. I actually just had bacon for dinner. That's amazing. What?
Dinner.
One of my favorite things to have every now and again is to have bacon and eggs for dinner. I know it's the wrong thing. Bacon and eggs is supposed to be for breakfast, but every now and again you got to mix it up. You got to live on the wild side.
Yeah, so we call it in our family. We call it brinner. There's brunch. We have brinner.
Oh, right.
Every now and then, yeah, where you can have bacon and eggs for dinner. It's perfect.
Yeah. Chris is saying we should behave. Hey, it's not us. It's it's these legends. They're not behaving, so we're not behaving. Like when Darrell starts calling out peach shapes. Was it pear shaped or peach shaped? Peach shaped.
It's pear shaped.
Yeah, it's not our fault. They dragged us down to their level, and we just live there with them, basically. We've also got Mocha Rain in the live. Mocha, I don't know if I've seen you in the live before, but welcome to the live. If you haven't been here before, Willie, welcome to the live, and also Joanne, also putting in a double shift. I saw her on the Angel Cake After Hours live stream as well. We really appreciate everybody spending so much time here on the live with us this week. But I think this is a great episode to talk about because a lot of storylines coming to a head here, Kahuna. A lot of action throughout the episodes. I'm definitely going to be throwing some very strong opinions out there about the legends. Well, the so-called legends of what we have on this season of the show. They don't necessarily reflect all of the legends of the challenge, but we're specifically talking about the ones that are playing this game. And very early on here, we see Sarah, Danny, and Emily talk about how pivotal it is for them to win, for Emily specifically to win this next daily, because they made a deal with the devil in Jordan and Tori and saying that they will throw Emily and Yes in, but they've got no intention, or Sarah at least has got no intention in doing this. I mean, Sarah and Danny have played Survivor. They play a cutthroat betrayal type of game. So it would have been interesting to see their hand forced here in this moment where they potentially would have saved Emily and Yes, and what the backlash would have been, because Tori promised that it would be all hell break loose if that happened. But luckily for them, it's not going to be a thing that they have to worry about this episode, Kahuna.
Funny that when you have the literal fastest swimmer in the world in her events, and then you give them swimming challenges, it often goes well for the gold medalist swimmer. Unfortunately, she has to carry someone on her back the entire way. And Jordan and Kaz kind of threw it away. But yeah, when you're angling for a certain thing, and then I'm sure as soon as they rocked up to the challenge that day and whatever, they got out of the van and see that they're at the water again, Sarah, Danny, and Emily would have just been ear to ear smiling, I'm sure, because yeah, it worked out perfectly for the plotting and the planning that Sarah had in place. That we did make a deal, but if we don't have to follow it through, then that's even better for us. So it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out brilliantly for them. And, I wonder if Emily was out there and she was tethered to Theo, would she still have won? Because Sarah had to put in a triple shift this specific episode and pulling him from, what do they call them? The platoon to platoon, or the floating...
the pontoon, yeah.
The pontoons, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously Emily did have to carry Yes, but
Base a bit
Theo's
lighter.
a lot bigger. Yeah, that's right. It would have been interesting to see how that would have played out. And in this instance, Kaz sort of having to carry Jordan a little bit with making extra laps for no reason in the challenge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's interesting seeing Theo not able to swim. Like, I don't remember him being bad at swimming, right? And her saying he can't swim. That's something that Theo, we love Theo. Everybody loves Theo. It's actually been, we spoke about it a little bit, or Drew spoke about it on his After Hours bakery live stream, where he said, Theo's been not loved by the editors so far because they haven't really given him a lot of content. He's actually... We've had the odd comment here or there, but the story has not revolved around Theo at all this season. And we hope he gets more opportunity to come back in the future. It's a similar worry that I have for players like Troy, which Troy is now starting to become more center of the show, which is he's now center of the thumbnails as well, because, we can do that because a lot of this episode revolved around him, and we'll be talking about Troy quite a bit. But, I'm a little bit worried for Theo that he hasn't had much content. But if he does come back in the future, that's something he's going to have to work on, because there's other people in the past that have had a lot of promise similar to Theo that just never really got the swimming side of it down. And he's going to have to, I think, work on that. Obviously, he can still win this season. Not every final includes big bits of swimming, but there's a lot of water over in Africa and these bloody lakes that they've got, and things like that. So you never know. They might be able to put something like this into the finale if the finale actually takes place in South Africa, because obviously they could fly somewhere else.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember in his prior seasons maybe swimming. You know how some seasons there's just not as many water challenges versus other ones because, like you said, resources or what's available to them. And maybe Theo got lucky in his previous ones, because I never remember that being such a glaring weakness. And we sort of tout how overall he's just a great competitor. In the sand, going to eliminations, obviously being in one of the most grueling finals ever, and coming second in a rookie year is amazing. But what would have happened if there was big swims involved and stuff like that? Like, it might have been a completely different story, and I didn't know. I want to see Theo actually do what everyone says they're going to do in an off season, and learn how to swim and make sure that he works on that weakness, because right now it's glaringly obvious that it's going to be one of these downfalls if there's ever a season where there's a lot of swimming in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wanted to bring up another comment or another note that I made here of the episode prior to the challenge. We get this little bit of a scene of Kaz talking about how upset she is with Jordan. Jordan, last minute threw this whole decision on her to get Kellyanne and Tristan down there in the elimination, and she feels betrayed because it's supposed to be a team, and he wasn't treating her as an equal. And this is something that we're going to see just continue throughout this episode. Let's talk about. There's going to be a few big drama points of this episode, so let's talk about the Kaz and Jordan dynamic here this season. I felt super annoyed at Jordan this episode because you and I came to bat for him on this live not that long ago, a couple of days ago when we did our late live. And maybe more so me, maybe I was the one fault because I love to believe that people can grow and become better human beings. And he definitely did come back at the end saying he understands he needs to work with Kaz moving forward. But we really saw the old Jordan come out here, the selfish. It's all about me. It's all about, I want Tori not to have to make a bad decision here. It's all about him. He's not thinking of his partner. And in some ways, he came across as very aggressive in the way that he tried to kind of dominate Kaz in the conversation that they had with Theo, obviously lying there as well when they're having this conversation. And I felt bad for Theo because obviously he wanted to say something, but he's in a game, and in the game, you need to also think about those relationships and things. But I have to say, this was not a good look on Jordan, someone that claims he plays this game with honor, and that's what the legends do. They play with honor.
Yeah, I've been a defender on the whole it's sort of a subshoot of this of Jordan Kaz, but the Tory Danny. I've always said Danny's fighting for what he wants, and Tori's doing the same, and to the point where they believe that they're protecting themselves by insulating themselves with their friends. They're respectful, but it's gone that step too far. When I'm like, okay, so I understand wanting to protect your alliance from having to go in, so I'll do what I can to keep them around, but not to the point where I'm going to throw myself in or go against my partners with to the point where it's self-sabotaging. I thought it was completely strategic. These are the people that will protect me. These are the people that will not throw me in. Therefore, I want them in the game around me because that's how we're going to get to the end. But now it's well, no, I'm so invested in this, that I would rather throw myself into elimination than even say another name. And that's where it gets really weird. That's just a step too far. And Jordan you're right, the old aggro, the old dog in Jordan that we've seen sort of quieting down over the years is still there. I don't think it ever goes away. It's about how you can kind of control it a bit. And it started getting out of his partner, Kaz. And it is always frustrating because if two people have opposing views, why is one more right than the other? But as fandoms of any of these shows that we watch, you kind of pick and choose on which side you're on of the fence based on what they're showing us. And Jordan's showing us that he's still got that asshole in him that comes out every now and then.
Yeah, well, Cash Wash here saying that Jordan got that haircut, don't know how to act now. He was in the live saying the same thing. He said that he should bring the mullet back because he never made a bad decision when he had a mullet on the show. So bring back the mullet, Kahuna. But no, in all seriousness, right? Kaz, mad respect for Kaz for standing her ground, for saying, listen, I'm a player in this game as well. My game is associated with your game. I'm not doing that. I expected that from Danny to stand his ground. Kaz in the previous episode came across as a bit of a pushover, but clearly she chose her time to fight. And as soon as her own game was on the line, she stepped up. And I thought she psychoanalyzed him so well, and it annoyed Jordan because she had such good points when she was saying I don't care what other people think about me. And he's like, I don't care either. It's well, why do you want to throw yourself in then? And she's like, maybe you should feel more comfortable, within your own skin and that type of stuff. And I could tell that it was really, really working on Jordan. She really had a good point there. And she was very calm, very composed through the whole thing while he was freaking out. It made him look really bad. And this whole comment about we, the legends, play with honor, I feel like that's a load of crap, basically. It depends on which legend you are. And I feel like this season is really showing the problem that we have with the main show. We've been saying it for a long time, where they will defend each other and go in for each other and have the same group go to the end every single time. Like, I think this is an advertisement for why we need to consistently bring more new, strong young blood into the game. Like, we still can have some of our legends there, but we need them. They've become self-entitled. That's the word I'm looking for. I feel like there's a lot of self-entitlement happening with Jordan and Tori specifically. And with how bad Jordan and Tori is acting, it's making Casey look really good, because Casey doesn't have this self-entitlement BS that she's walking around with, and she's the only realist here, saying, well, when push comes to shove, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Casey looking really like she's saying, like, I've got the alliances, but is Jordan going to pick me over Tori? No, and she's realistic and she knows where it's at. And at some point, they've been saying it the entire season. We're doing what we want to do to protect our alliance, and will get us to the end. But at some point, we have to make that decision. And Sarah's actually, luckily for her, not having to follow through on it. But it would have been interesting to see how when it gets to that point, would Danny be forced to say Sarah's name? Would he say it in order to protect his own game? Kind of what Tori's, pushing back against him with Jordan and Casey. Would Danny do it to Sarah? Would Sarah do it to Danny, when she has shown that she's willing to do it to Emily? I would think they would, right? Like Danny said, I don't want you to have more number ones than me. I'm the number one. So it would be interesting to see, if push came to shove, would he pull that trigger as well? And I have to say he would. Like, yes, he's protecting Sarah as much as he can. But if it came down to my game versus hers, I'm putting mine first. And I think Sarah would do the same, right? That's where it's now fallen over for Jordan and Tori. I guess not Casey, because she's willing to say a name if forced to, I'm sure, as well. But for Jordan and Tori specifically, that's where it falls down, where I am protecting my people, but now I'm protecting them so much, I'm putting them before me. And that's where it starts to get weird in as far as competition gameplay goes.
Yep. Let's read a couple of the comments here that have come in since we've had a conversation. Willie is saying, Tori wanting to throw herself into the elimination is just very stupid. She didn't even care about her partner. And it's exactly, Tori and Jordan did the exact same thing to both of their partners. What really annoyed me about the Tori situation is she goes and has a conversation with Danny. Danny was always going to say no. We know that. But then she tries to throw it on him again last minute at the nomination table. And he's like, listen, we just had this same conversation walking to this table. I haven't changed my mind. And I felt that was pretty scummy of her to do last minute, to try and throw it on him again. Like he's this, I don't know how to say it, like a beta male that's going to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to fold here, Tori. Like, he was never going to do that. This guy is a leader of the pack, right, Kuna? Like, it just looked bad on her.
And she tried to do the spin, or beforehand anyway, I want to make sure that we're doing the best we can, and I want to earn it. Like, shut up. If you get to the end, it's like, that's the weakest excuse ever.
To me, it takes, listen, those that have listened to my live streams for a long time, and even for the ones that I've done with Drew and Chantel for a long time, everybody knows my favorite part of the challenge is the eliminations. I love the eliminations. I love it when people go in there and they earn their stripes and all that kind of stuff. But I don't have less respect for someone because they're doing the right thing for their game and not going down to the arena. Like, if you're down there, it's because you did something wrong socially and your strategy to stay in the game didn't work. I know that they brought the whole skull thing in to promote people to go down there, and I feel like that got into the legends' heads, where now they feel like they need to do it to earn the respect of TJ and the producers and things like that. But a guy like Danny doesn't care, But I've got a theory while we're talking about this, when we had a conversation with Troy a couple of weeks ago, and I don't remember if this was on the live or was after the live, because we actually spoke to Troy, who's a super cool guy, and I know you guys are going to love his interview that he did, or his recap that he did with Angel Cake, which is coming out this week as well, so keep an eye out for that. We had a bit of a conversation afterwards, and he said Danny was really worried about how he was going to be portrayed this season. Because he was the main guy that was standing up against the legends. But I feel like the edit is showing us that Danny is correct every single episode, and it is showing us that the legends are the ones that are wrong this season. They're the ones that are delusional. And you've got to ask yourself, why are the editors doing this? Like, if they could have buried him, if they could have made him the bad guy. I think they want him back. I'm more convinced than ever now they want Danny back in a future season, because if they didn't care for Danny, they wouldn't give him a good edit.
It's true, but I mean, the edit is also he does look good, but it's also I don't know, being MTV or Bunny Murray being the challenge and the way the legends are being portrayed to me kind of feels like they're whingy babies a little bit, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
They're not protecting. Like we've always heard for so long, we've heard that, oh, Bananas and CT and all these people are getting protected by the editors, by the production team. They're not protecting Jordan. They're not protecting Tori this season at all. And they didn't protect Bananas.
Yeah, Bananas, even after the fact on his own show, he really comes off as a whiny baby about these MVPs that have pushed them, and the MVPs are being shown as just that. They're just trying to play the game and not crying about it to the point where it's personal and emotional and all that. They're pushing the game and they're pushing it further than as far as they can to get to the end and win, which is a great thing. But when it comes to a show like The Challenge, when you're talking about editors, how they're seeing them, why they're portraying certain ways, it's also a show that traditionally loves drama and wants to have that involved. So maybe they're editing, like if the MVPs are all cool, calm, and collected, as great as it is to show how you can play the game and play it well, it can potentially be a very boring TV season if everyone's just chill and we all know we're just playing the game that we're supposed to play the game and we're doing the right thing and honorable and blah blah blah, but we're playing hard.
Especially if the season's like 20 episodes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that
So,
I think, well, yeah, yeah, that's right. You
like,
need to try
it's
to
like
stretch,
it's like
stretch.
you've got all these like non-factors going out early in the game until episode 12, and then it starts kind of heating up a little bit, maybe,
Mm.
and that's the problem I feel like with these normal season these days. But let's read a few more comments here. Chris saying everybody loves Theo, double question mark, don't be hasty now. I didn't know that Theo had
Ooh.
haters out there. I didn't know that, Chris. It's a hot take. It's really interesting how many people who can't swim well in these challenges. I agree. Like you'd think they do a little bit of training before they go out there. Before Danny Cap says, I think if you think about it, Kaz was better than Emily since she did an extra lap and still right behind them in the race. I think that yes, because of yes. Like Emily was struggling because of yes. Not like I didn't
Yes.
realize how bad of a swimmer yes was until this season, but he's really being shown up. Yeah, I think anybody would look horrible being tied to Emily though. And Jordan's a good swimmer. So
Yeah,
for Kaz to
and
keep
so
up
is
is
Kaz
good.
apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, so for Kaz to keep up is great. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Um,
fact that there's been some people I've seen it on other like social media stuff as well that it makes Emily look bad. I go, no, it makes Yes look really bad.
yeah, not Emily. Emily's
Emily's not
got nothing
looking
to
bad
prove.
in this. Yeah,
She's got how many gold Olympic medals? She doesn't
I
have to
think
worry about looking bad. Three or
3 or
four.
4
Yeah, there you go.
gold. But they've
She's
also
got nothing
played
to
it up
prove.
on the show as well. Like the other time they had the swim challenge, they made a very big deal of the other challengers going. She looks like she's floating out there and she's like flying through the water and stuff. So clearly, there's a very big difference even between her and Jordan and anyone else, even Wes, whatever the case may be. But when you're carrying someone else, like you said, man, you're only as fast as your partner.
Yep. Mocha Rain here says, as an Aussie, I love Troy and Kiki, and I thought both of them are and have done fairly well. They have. I'm a Mocha. I don't know how long you've been listening to us. I'm a massive Troy and Kiki fan. We've had Troy on the podcast before. He's a friend of the podcast. He definitely will come back on the podcast. He actually wanted to do it this week, and I said to him, maybe do the Drew one first, get your thoughts out there, and then you're always welcome to come back on and talk to us about the episode. So I'm really I'm going to be listening to that as soon as it comes out because I know Troy's going to have some choice words because his name was thrown through the mud a little bit here in this episode, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I love both Troy and Kiki as well. Big fans over here as well. Before Danny Cap says, Macarena, I agree. I think they're great. Cash Wash says that I think it was Mauricio Jordan being able to drag Cass. It's probably a miracle that Jordan be able to drag Cass better than Emily could drag. Yes. I think Cass did pretty good. I think she obviously Jordan probably is the bit. I would imagine is the better swimmer, but Cass didn't look like she was struggling to keep up. Talking about people who were struggling, Kiki with her asthma, I was really worried for her every time she came up and she had to inhale. But again, it just shows that fighting spirit that Kiki has, right? As a competitor, she just does not give up.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we've loved about her from the get-go is that she gives much more than you would think, and she's always outperforming expectations. Like the whole thing at the start was, oh look at this, Bachelor or Love Island I don't even remember what show she was on, but like the dating show Barbie type figure, she's not going to be able to do well in the challenge, and she was a physical beast. Then she had back injuries that were keeping her. Oh, poor Kiki, she's not going to be able to perform well, and she wins the whole bloody season. And then in a season where she's like constantly being potentially thrown in, she's at the bottom. She doesn't seem to have the same alliances, and everyone's aiming for her, even her own,
Country
Australian
people, yeah.
teammate, countryman, and then having asthma, and she still pushes through. Like, I'm sure we've
And she was
seen.
still injured, by the way. Like, because I
Yep.
remember when I did my Kiki interview after the Australian challenge, and she was on the show. She said she didn't really fully recover from her back injury even up until that point. She still had issues going into Worlds, but they haven't really made a big deal of it on the show. But we know she had that as well while she was out there, which made me really fearful when Darrell jumped in and I saw her back. Sort of
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and she was
Get
getting pulled
yanked.
in. Oh, I was like, oh man, like I hope
Yeah.
this doesn't put her out, because I knew that she is still struggling with that while she's out there. So yeah, what an absolute fighter Kiki is. So Mocha also says, question: is anyone else over Tori and Jordan's storyline? Considering for Tori, she's working with Danny, who is doing this for his family, and this is what. I like to put this out there. I know some people will say, "Oh, look at Chris defending Cara Maria again," but Cara Maria saw through this from the start. She didn't want to have anything to do with it when the engagement happened. She was like, I'm not even going to take part of this. Like, maybe people are only now seeing the stuff that annoyed Cara Maria with the whole Tori and Jordan situation. Because yeah, I'm kind of over it as well, to be honest. And I'm like, I for the longest period of time, I never watched Jordan's is it Real World that he started with it? I never watched any of that stuff he did before he came into the challenge. So I didn't know any of that history, but I've always liked Jordan as a competitor, which I still do. I like Jordan as a competitor. I still think he's an awesome competitor, but I also think we should be calling out the things that is problematic when we see it. And one of the things I do respect about Jordan is clearly he's a complex personality. Clearly, he's someone that he's gone through some shit in life. It doesn't give you a license to be a dick all the time. But I think he's built a very strong exterior because of the adversity he's gone through in life, and sometimes he bites before he has a conversation, and I feel like that's what happened this episode. Even at the end of the episode, I will say he now is better at understanding when he's being wrong, because by the end of the episode, he's like, I get it, I was wrong, I was being a dick, I messed up in the swimming challenge. I know I need to work with Cass. Cass comes before everybody else in the game. He gets it towards the end. He just needed to work through some of his stuff, So I don't want to just say there's no hope for Jordan, but there is moments when he can be a dick, and I think we can call that out, Gono.
Yeah, it's progress. Like in previous, the old Jordan, when we say the old Jordan rears its ugly head, the fight with Kaz probably would have carried on till the next season, and he would have held a grudge, and then maybe fought against and thrown themselves in on purpose rather than actually coming back in the same episode and apologizing. It's still there, but he gets to like tamper it down a little bit over time.
Yeah. Lena says, but it was good TV. Cass walking away during confessional was great. Listen, no one is disagreeing that these legends, like, okay, maybe the Tori and Jordan, Romeo and Juliet tale, like Theo told us, with the little rose and the music playing in the background, it's getting a little bit old, a little bit stale, but they are bringing some drama to the show, and they're giving us good content to watch, good content to talk about and consume. And I know that there are going to be diehard fans out there of Jordan and Tori that may come across this channel and not agree with us, right? Because apparently on Drew's channel, he's been called out by a few Tori and Jordan stands for being too hard on them. And you're always going to have people, like, that's the beauty of the challenge, Survivor, competitive reality TV, whatever it is that you watch. We all have our clan. We all have people that we get behind and we're passionate about them. Like CT can do no wrong for most people. But how I like to look at it, even if you're a favorite of mine, even if you're Cara Maria, I will call out some of the shitty behavior that she had at times, being a little bit of a bitch towards some people out there. Like, you can call it out. You can still, it doesn't make you not a fan. It's just, you're just saying, I still like this person. They're a bit problematic every now and again, but I'm still a fan of them. That's okay, unless they do something like we've said before, like a Camilla, or like, something that is to that level, like a Kenny, where you're just like, we can't defend these people. Would you agree with that, Kuda? I know it's like everybody's got their favorites, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's lines, right? And as long as they stay within the lines and can get really messy, within the boundaries of the TV show and what is considered okay, then yeah, they'll milk it, they'll use it, they'll get every bit of drama they can out of it. And people like Jordan, who is experienced as he is, and Tori by this point as well, the different shows she's been on, and the number of seasons on this show, they know what to actually do as far as you know calling them out. Yeah, like Jordan, I've never had a problem calling out. Tori, I've been a fan of, but not to the point where I would go to the ends of the earth to
Okay,
defend
no,
her.
I wouldn't be open about that on here. I don't know how many Tory fans are listening.
I know there's probably going to be paragraphs in the comments. No, I am a fan.
It's like not only is Kuna a Casey fan, he's also a Tory fan, guys.
I'm not a fan like I'm a fan, not a stan. Like I appreciate her, but I'm not going to defend her to the ends of the earth. I'm not like you and Cara Maria, for example.
Yeah, keep Cara Maria out of your mouth, Kuna. Don't say anything about her.
Yeah, I've never had, and people, I think it's just too much back to back, because really, like, people going, "Oh, I'm sick of the Tori and Jordan thing." There was a break there. Jordan wasn't there for a while. Like, it was 2 seasons off, and Tori was doing the doing Fessy literally, and like as far as the Vacation Alliance goes, and then Jordan only came back and surprised her last season, right? Like with Ride or Dies with Anissa, which was not supposed to be a thing. But yeah, like that's where it actually started again. And because we've gone from Ride or Dies into Championship, it feels like it's just way too long. But people settle down. It's one season where she got surprised with him coming back, and then now one season where they're actually kind of on the same page. People have been acting like it's been going on for years. Like there was a break there. They broke up, and Jordan didn't appear for a little while because of controversy and stuff. But
And production chooses what they show us. Like I'm not opposed to, if you want both of these people back in there because they're good at what they do, bring them back, but just maybe show us less about some of the relationship stuff. Like they can choose not to show too much of that if people are getting annoyed with it. But clearly there is still a market of people who really enjoy that and want to see them find each other again and love. I mean, because again, when I look at it critically, it's because I don't come from the love show genre. I don't watch that. I'm not into that kind of stuff. It's not why I watch The Challenge, but there are people who are fans of them from shows such as that or other shows that are coming in that maybe find some enjoyment out of it. So, but I just brought it up because there was a few people asking the question if the storyline is getting old here in the live. Chris, this is a comment I would never thought I would see ever. Tori and Jordan being wild cards, they got me agreeing with Casey. Because Chris has never been the biggest Casey supporter. But again, it's why I said, like, listen, I've always said this about Casey. I think Casey, I reckon Casey would be a cool friend to have. I reckon she would have your back. I think she'd be so dope to hang out with outside of the challenge. It's just been her getting space from, and I'm very happy for her and Nani that they're together and that they've got their thing. But it's kind of similar to the Tori and Jordan scenario when they're on the show together. It's hard to watch. Having Nani there with her on the show takes away where I think Casey's very comfortable there. She's got her pillar in the game she can work off, which is great for life, not great for TV necessarily. And then she's got all her friends that normally go onto the main show, where seeing Casey on the outside, seeing Casey having to fight, and now suddenly she's close with Tori, which has never been, I don't think, her number one. And she's also have to learn to work with Jordan because he comes as a package deal with Tori, which they've never had that relationship before. And then her being constantly thrown into eliminations like Troy, welcome to the live, that means that we're seeing a different side to Casey. We're seeing the fighter side to Casey. She's speaking with a lot of passion. I really think this season is doing a lot of good for Casey on the show. I would say I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. And a lot of it's got to do with the fact that she doesn't have all of her Big Brother friends and her girlfriend out there, basically. It's basically just forcing her to, go out of that comfort zone that she's normally in. Lovable Nikki says, no one feels like that. Tori was being a weirdo, knowing to throw herself in, Danny into an elimination. John would never throw himself in. John. Who's John? Johnny. Bananas?
Bananas?
I'm assuming, yeah. I don't think Bananas would ever throw him. Bananas only cares about himself. Troy Cullen says, I don't think Danny got a good edit. I just think they couldn't give him a bad edit because he did have a lot of merit behind what he was doing. Yeah, I haven't seen anything in the edit for me personally, and Kuna, I'd like to know your perspective on that. I haven't seen anything that have made Danny look bad. The only part that is kind of a little bit weird and doesn't get explained very well is like Tori can't have 2 number ones. Why is it a bad thing? Because you could, Tori having 2 number ones means you've got 2 number ones that's going to help you in the game. But I think that what he meant by that is he wants to keep Sarah safe as his number one. So she needs to have one number one. She can't have two because then, I think his number two is probably Emily and Yes at this point, I'm assuming. So it's a fight for Emily and Yes, or whoever is that number two of Tori, and they know that they probably won't be able to both take two number twos into a final, I think. But that's maybe the only thing I could see where it was like, why is he so gung-ho on this? But the rest of it, I haven't seen much from Danny. Like, I don't think he's had a bad edit. I think his edit he's been the voice of reason so far for me, as someone that loves strategy and gameplay and leaving your feelings at home. Like you said, everybody in the Legends are too emotionally involved and they're not thinking with clear heads right now, which the other side is, because they don't have that baggage coming into the game.
Yeah, I never understood you can't have number one. I have to be your number one. And people would say, but he's your partner. Like, you have to be the number one. Like, if something bad happens to you, it happens to me. We're linked that way. But it actually ended up being true this episode, where Tori would rather put herself in, hurting her chances and her partner, rather than not even just putting someone else in, not even putting Casey or Jordan in, but protecting them from having to say their name is so insane. And I didn't get it. And now Danny has proven
There's a
right.
reason. There's a reason for it, by the way. Sorry to interrupt your train of thought there, but there's a reason that these legends are willing to do it. Like, Troy would never do that, right? And you know why Troy would never do that? Firstly, he's a competitor, right? But Troy knows, as a newbie coming into the show, his legacy is not built yet in the game. He's like, yes, he's won the Challenge Australia. That is awesome, and that will go down in history as the first Challenge Australia winner. These legends coming in, like Tori and Jordan and that, they know they're getting the call for 39. They know that. It's a foregone conclusion. So there's no risk for them in throwing themselves in. For an MVP coming into the game, they haven't established that callback for the next season yet. So how can you ask someone, not only are you giving up $500,000, but you're also now saying, hey, you potentially could go home here early and be forgotten. While the legend, they don't have that same risk associated with going in, right, Kahuna?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you can do. Like, I don't think there's a formula or anything that you can crack that would automatically mean you get to get that callback. Tori and the people that are comfortable have built that up over years, and whatever it was they did in the first season that brought them back for a second. People have said this about Casey for a long time. Like, we don't know what the producers are seeing. We hope that there's more to what they're showing than what they're showing us. And yeah, like that they are guaranteed that, but it's tough to see when, like, people have that reassurance and that confidence, then they don't have to play the game in the same way as other people. But we also don't know what that algorithm is that they use, because we've seen people get to we've seen, I mean, Jenny West literally won the season and has
Didn't get
not
a
been
callback.
called back, right? So, I mean, there are theories as to why and how she's too boring. She's not that great of a character. Other people think she's too dominant and she would clearly, win again if brought back on. I don't know what the thing is, but there's people that have gone to the finals. There's people that have gone farther. There's people that have won and not get a call back, whereas people perform really poorly, but they're giving
But why is that a
whatever
bad thing?
it is.
Why is that a bad thing? If Jenny West is seen as someone that's too dominant, and if she comes back, she's just going to dominate the field every single time, then I would argue that, she did have a personality. Like, maybe she wasn't too much into some of the drama stuff, but the more you get on the show, the better a personality you're going to have, because you're going to get more used to the cameras in your face. Like, a lot of people that go onto these shows, they're not used to producers talking to them and wanting certain storylines and say, hey, can you say this in this way? Can you've got these cameras in your face consistently. Some people, like, they go out there and they're trying to keep their game behind the scenes, which I feel like that's what Casey does. She kind of hides a lot of her game, even potentially from production at times, so that she can, like, move through the game stealthy and get things done. So she doesn't want to be the center of attention or bring a lot of attention to her, because if people forget about her, she can sneak away into a final and potentially win. Like, for me, new legends should be made. So I'm not forgiving them for not bringing Jenny West back. Like, I reckon they should bring Jenny West back. She deserves a call back. I'm annoyed by that. So just wanted to sort of put my 2 cents in there. I want to read a few more comments, because we are falling so far behind. Everybody is so good in the comments today. Lovable Nicky is saying, not too much on Yes, Chris. I love Yes. And Troy says that Yes would admit he was an anchor as well. I love Yes. Obviously, it's tough when you're tied to an Olympian, right? It's never going to be an easy thing. And yes, Angel Cake interview with Troy is tomorrow. So make sure for everybody that also watches the Angel Cake channel that you check that out. I'm sure Troy's going to give us some great behind the scenes info. Mokaran says, I've watched your videos before, love your content. First live I've caught. Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're happy to have you in the live. Also, for those that are listening to this at a later stage that don't watch the lives, we love and respect everybody that watches it at any time. Any kind of support to the channel, even if you watch it later, does help the YouTube algorithms and things like that, so more people can actually see this. Chris never misses an opportunity to speak highly of Miss Cara Maria. Hey, if you're a stan, you're a stan. You gotta represent. I feel like that's the only way I earn my stan stripes. Reality realness in the live as well. I do not even want to see Tori and Jordan on an extra season. Their storyline is yawn. Yep, I agree. Mocha saying, I will say I've been wanting to see Cara Maria back, and I believe she should have been on this season over Tori. 100%. She's way bigger legend than Tori. Tori's just more recent. It's recency bias probably when they made the selection. Plus, I think that only the biggest reason I'm convinced the biggest reason Cara Maria hasn't been back is because of Paulie. That's the biggest reason, because she didn't want to do the show without Paulie being guaranteed a callback, which they both now have gotten, right? So we'll see how that plays out for both of them in the near future. Chris saying agreed. If they do X's again for 39, Jordan and Tori better stay home. Can't agree more. Reality realness. Hi, Chris. Let's have a look. What else is in here? The reason they rely so hard on Tori and Jordan as a story is because no one else on the cast is doing anything. Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, right? I mean, we've got to think about it. Like they're going to show us what is there to be seen. But then I will say someone like Troy might disagree with that. So it'll be interesting to listen to his takes on some of that, because I know that Troy spoke about strategy and conversations they had behind the scenes with how votes came together that never made the screen. So, but I feel like the producers feel like because Tori and Jordan are this challenged couple who had their engagement or the proposal on the show, like they're invested in telling us the story and they're committed to it to the end. So they'll always show it no matter what. Sandy says, thank God everyone is getting tired of Tori and Jordan's storyline. Maya say everyone do have a fan. Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. Even though this is how myself and Kahuna are feeling, or this is how people in the live are feeling, if you love Tori, and I'm not saying that Maya you do, but if you love Tori, stan Tori. Like for the longest period of time, I stand Cara Maria and people were angry at me for it. I still stand her. I don't care. And now people are turning around because they've gotten, they've missed her. It's been too long since we've seen her on our screen. So now people are coming around. But sometimes you just got to stand with your people, even if no one else, is with you. That's how I feel about it. If someone would be dramatic, we would get more. But until then, all they have is Tori and Jordan keep their lights on. They got to pay the bills somehow. Before Daddy Cap, I wonder if the vets are worried about losing their clout with all these new people. Some of them are going to give the vets a run for their money, literally with the fans. And this is what I'm saying. Like for me, it's interesting to see that production, I don't think, is protecting the vets. They're not protecting them this season. They're giving the MVPs a fair chance at becoming fan favorites. They're showing good positive sides. My theory still is that if they didn't care for Danny, because my theory in the beginning was maybe Danny and Sarah are too strong-minded and production will be like, no, we don't want people that can stand up to the vets. But if they really didn't want them back, they could have not given them much. But they're showing, I think, a pretty clear argument from Danny's side and Sarah's side for why they're doing what they're doing. Even Emily, which we probably should get into. I know there's a lot of comments I can't read through. You guys are leaving so many good comments. I'll try and get back to it a little bit later on. But even Emily's side. So this is the thing where Troy, just close your ears for like a second here, because I love you, Troy. But like from Emily's point, Kahuna, right? She and this is where it's going to be clarified tomorrow, because obviously we're looking at an edit. We're only seeing what we're seeing, right? She's been working this season with Danny and Sarah. Those are her people this season, and we said from the start, the country thing clearly isn't a thing because you don't win money as a team, as Team Australia. It is an individual game. And she got it. She had her people. They've been looking after her with the alliances and the things that are going on. She felt like, and I think when she said Troy fired the first shot, my understanding of that, and it may be something that I haven't seen, but my understanding of that was that Troy might have outed Emily in the beginning, or would have been in on the Kiki being a smoke and mirrors vote very early on in the show, and then said Emily was to blame for it or something like that. That's how it came across. Now, if Troy did that or didn't do that, I don't know. I didn't see it necessarily, But in her mind, she needed to say something to justify the fact that she was going to spill some Aussie blood. I get that the easiest thing is to be angry at Emily in this move. But if you look at this objectively in Emily's shoes, was Troy and Kiki ever her people? Were that the people that she worked with in her original season? Was there a certain bond or loyalty formed there? I don't think that there was. So for that reason, I can understand why she preferred to work with someone that showed her clear allegiance to the season. And that's just as a viewer that's just seeing the edit. How do you feel about Emily's big betrayal here in this episode?
Yes and no. Like, I agree with you. She's actually come out and said we didn't have that relationship, right? It wasn't like that going into the season. But
Yeah.
I think that's where my issue is that there should have been. And even logically, like, there should have been. Because she's coming into a season where she doesn't know, like, she's incredibly fortunate that she struck up that relationship with Sarah first up, right? And yeah, like, because she had that relationship with Sarah and she didn't with necessarily with Troy and Kiki, then yes, it makes sense in that context. But for me, going into it, it shouldn't have been that way. She should have had Kiki and like she did with Grant. Like they should have actually solidified, knowing that as Australians, we're when I came into it thinking, okay, there's Australians, then there's the USA, and the legends, which are all American as well, except for Theo. So I was like, the numbers advantage to the USA is going to be extreme here, and the Australia needs to try to get around other people, be it the UK because we've got the England Australia thing. I don't know, like I know that those relationships weren't going to work out on a country basis, but I think when you come into a game where you don't have the relationships, you don't have the prior um you know things going on, then you need to grab onto what you can. And I thought from the get-go it should have been Australia trying to solidify themselves and working with other teams. Like, yes, the fact that she got Sarah on her side, which automatically brings Danny and potentially, Justine, but Bananas is a whole wild card, is great. But she should have done that with the Australians as well, and then made a power force there. Jordan would have been gone. Like, yes, she's done the right thing to keep herself in the game, but she should have done that with the Australians, I felt, from the get-go, and had it stronger from the beginning. Because when they're still standing up at a challenge up until this week, you still see more green shirts than the black and the gray's gone for a while now, but the black and the red, there's more green shirts, and they could have kept that to be the case. And in reality, with the Australian teams the way they were and who was choosing, Danny saying, I don't want to go to the end with Jordan. Emily should have been saying the same thing. Who do you want to go to the end with, and who can you beat at the end? And as much as like it's a good thing to have your Australians there and your team there, it's also not the same legends and the people that you think you can beat at the end as well. So, or that you can't beat at the end as well. So for me, it was no, she hasn't necessarily done it wrong, but I thought I would have liked to see her do it better. That's my thing.
It's interesting because obviously I love Kiki, I love Troy. They are people right out there, and Emily has never been my favorite necessarily from the Australian team, but I have to take myself out of my bias shoes that I'm sitting in and look at it from Emily's perspective. And when I look at it from Emily's perspective, I do think she made the right move here because, like I said, she's played with both Kiki and Troy for a whole season. She wasn't in on the alliance. She was an outcast that season for good reason that we can't talk about here because there's a lot of stuff that happened off camera that even when I had the Connor interview, I had to remove it. So I can't talk about it because I don't want to piss off Channel 10 or Paramount, so I can't do stuff with them in the future. But people who know, and people who are on Reddit or people who reach out to players or people out there, they could probably put two and two together as to some of the crap that happened on that season. But Emily was on the outside. She wasn't necessarily in the side that I agreed with. But coming into this, I don't think that she ever felt she fully trusted. Chris here says that the first shot was fired when Troy voted for Yes and Emily, which was a direct vote. So they were willing to gamble with their safety in the game. And maybe that's something that's stuck in her head. And my thing is, if you know that Kiki is not your person, and if there is jealousy, which there very well could be, Nikki, I definitely could see, because remember, Emily is an athlete. She's an Olympian. She should have, in her mind, she should have won. She deserved to be the champion of the Challenge Australia. It's very possible there's jealousy there, and it could have added to the vote. But I don't think it was a vote only out of jealousy, right? Because if you're going to go after Kiki, you might as well throw the closest ally of Kiki in against her in the arena. That way you're sure there's not two people coming back at you afterwards. It's only one person. And then she brokered a deal, which is more than what I thought. Like, I actually applaud Yes and Emily for brokering this deal. I don't know if Jordan's going to be truthful to it, but I mean, Jordan's done some crazy stuff in the past, so it's possible that he's apparently the Legends play with honor. So we'll see if the honor actually does reflect into this next episode. He said he would sit down in front of the finish line and not win the next one. So they really have their bases covered in all ways. Like, if Jordan and Kaz is not coming for them, they know Sarah's not coming for them, and they also know that Danny's team is not coming for them. That means that the only team in the game left right now that potentially will come for them is the one that comes back from the arena. I think strategically, if I agree with her, if I think it was morally the correct thing, I think strategically it was a good move. And I do agree with some people that are saying that Emily is a good villain in the show. And one of the things for me that I feel like we haven't had a lot in recent times has been like a good villain, like someone where you're like, kind of don't like this person, but they're good, and you got to respect the villainy in them. So she could become that person on the show, Kerner.
Well, that's what, for the longest time, all of the legends, Bananas, Wes, Jordan, have all played that role in various forms. But now, over time and familiarity, they're kind of, actually, they're probably still villains to a lot of people. But yeah, like it's definitely worth having that villain and I'm assuming that's why they kept bringing Fessy back to be that villain in the season. But he's kind of just a bit bland and bland. Yeah, he's nothing. But like, when you say she made the right decision, I think she made the right decision in context of this episode, but that's off the basis of an entire season of what I think is the wrong strategy for the course of the season. And we saw, like, if she didn't win that, right, Sarah, like, she's at the bottom of that alliance. Whether she thinks she's Sarah's number one, Sarah's got Danny number one over her, and she's proven
100%.
that. They've made a deal, right? So had Emily from the get-go does not have the ties. Yes, isn't in there with all these people either, right? So if she had not chosen Sarah, who was going to put Danny first, who is with Tori, who's going to fight tooth and nail for a Jordan and a Casey, apparently. But if she had not gone down that path from the get-go and actually had gotten in with Troy and had gotten in with Kiki, who also don't have the relationships and who have shown Kiki is incredibly loyal, if they had actually mended that bridge properly and solidified that alliance from the get-go, it would have been a very different story. She is around right now because she won. And if she got into she could have come back from elimination for sure. But the only reason why she didn't get put into elimination is because she won. And that deal was done showing that she's at the bottom of that alliance that she believes she's at the top of. She could have been at the top of her own alliance instead of being at the bottom of the US one.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair. I mean, at least she is in an alliance at the moment, which I think she's desperately wanted to be in the right side of the numbers this season, having gone and chosen an alliance that was the failing alliance in the first season that she played. And we saw glimpses of Emily being able to play a strategic game in the Challenge Australia, where I said I feel like she would do better on the main show because she was a lot more strategy game body and her approach to the game than what people on the Challenge Australia were in those early days. But I want to read a couple more comments here. Reality Realness saying, would the game be fixed if you couldn't vote in your own country? I would have liked to see teams go up against each other. And I actually have a theory about this, Chantal. With the Challenge USA 2 now allowing for MTV players to come over, it eliminates legends from the game if there's a World Championship 2, because the legends are now technically in the game, right? They're playing with the USA 2. So I feel like if they do have a World Championship 2, it will be a team thing. I feel like they would say the USA team versus Australia if Australia gets another season, and Argentina and UK, and can we get South Africa or Africa in there, please? But maybe we'll get like some teams taking each other on in the future, because they clearly won't have a legend paired with them, because it would be kind of weird when Jordan or whoever's in this new season, when Bananas wins the USA 2, if he comes back and they're like, hey, Bananas, guess what? You're going to be paired to a legend in the game now, and that legend is going to be Jenny West. That's going to be weird.
Yeah, it is like the whole thing with the. I mean, they already did War of the Worlds a few seasons ago, and I thought that
Yeah,
was the template. Like the early seasons of the challenge did big games a lot, and they already tried to do the England versus the USA and stuff like that and I thought coming into this is the perfect time to do teams based again, like country versus country versus country, and you when you say maybe not vote out people from your own, but having to vote out one of your own as a team. You know how that's what they did, isn't it? Because then the team has to vote almost survivor like, do we get rid of someone who's in our alliance within our country team, or do you get rid of the weakest player so that our team can actually compete at a better level the next season? And that's where a different sort of strategy comes into play. Um, I thought that's what was going to happen. The country thing is completely gone. It like I was when I was saying Emily should have got with the Aussies, not because of Aussie, but because it made sense strategy wise and relationship wise that none of them had deep ties to existing people. So it made sense to try to get your own deep ties. And she just did it with Sarah and Danny as opposed to the Aussie. So yeah.
yeah. For any of those that are new to the live and that haven't been here before, I know that spoilers are all over the place, and it's exciting to talk and speculate about things. Like we've already had the cast, which I'm not too worried about the cast, Chris. We know who's on the season, but any spoilers in regards to who's being eliminated on the USA 2 already, both myself and Kuna want to stay spoiler free, especially because we still have a draft coming up as well in the future. So please don't spoil us on that, or even format. I think format could kind of ruin it a little bit as well. So for now, if you could keep that out, that would be amazing. Chris, thanks for keeping the live in check on that. Troy says it's fair that she voted him in this round, clearly, but thinks that they should have taken a shot at Jordan. And says sorry about that. Doesn't want to comment too much. It's fine. We love hearing from you, obviously, on the live. And Chris says, I'd like Emily Moore as a villain if she just straight up said, yeah, I don't like Kiki because she beat me and I want revenge. Own your shit, Em. And that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I feel like Emily's being a little bit disingenuous by not just saying, like, listen, I got a problem with this. I should have won, just be petty. That's okay. It shows us you've got passion for the game. Riley says Emily and Yes had a chance to throw Jordan in. You always throw Jordan in. That's what Danny's been saying the whole season, Riley, but no one's listening to him. So he's clearly the voice of reason. Amaya says allegedly. Okay, so this is the one where it's like spies, lies, and allies format potentially on the next season. Let's hope Kyle competes on the UK. I agree. I've missed Kyle. You never know which people you're going to miss until they're not there. And I kind of have missed Kyle a little bit. I like his comments, his snarkiness. Are you a Kyle fan, Kuna?
I'm a big Kyle fan, because he just brings so much to. Like, he's a good competitor, like deceptively so. Like he's got a tank. He just never runs out of cardio apparently, despite being like the most debaucherous person in the show.
I remember his first season. Was it Cutthroat that his first season was? Like where he went for the run in the final. I think he got like second or third that season. And I was just like, who is this guy, this pirate that keeps drinking? He was drinking the night before the final and then went for this massive run and just didn't stop.
Yeah, that is exact. I saw an interview with not my favorite person at all from the challenge, but Zach, Zach did a podcast or whatever, and I can't believe this. It's on YouTube somewhere. It came up in my algorithm and just feeds me challenge stuff all the time. But he said that first season when Carl was on, it was that they did like a purge where Rogan lost. If you remember, like running up the hill, he came last. And he said they couldn't believe that they were looking.
I heard this. Yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, the way Kyle was running was ridiculous. And he looked like he was uncomfortable. And it turns out Kyle getting onto the show didn't inform producers that he was both diabetic and asthmatic. And he thought if he had given that information, he might not get on. So being the first time, he wanted to stay on. And apparently he shoved his meds up his ass in order to get past producers. So he's boofed these like insulin pens are like large items, and he's got it inside him running up a mountain, and Rogan still lost.
Oh wow. Rogan will never live this down.
There
Chris
you
says,
go.
as a fellow type 1 diabetic, I respect Kyle's hustle, the insulin. Amy says, yes, Seth that Darrell asked him to throw in Jordan, and then yes went and made a deal with Jordan not to throw him in instead. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, because I would have loved to have seen, I think firstly, Darrell knows, like, if you go up against Jordan in a final, and Kaz looks like she's got a tank on her as well, it's going to be tough to beat him. It's going to be very tough to beat him. And Darrell also wants revenge, right, for All Stars, where he lost to him. But I do think that it would have been tough because we haven't spoken about the elimination yet. This elimination, Darrell really stuffed it up for a legend. For someone that's played this game for so many times, how do you miss a small bit of attention to detail where they had to swing through the brick wall, rebuild the brick wall, do the math, and then he misses the last part that says subtract by X amount. And he's in the sand trying to do it over and over again. He doesn't understand why it's not working. That seemed like a rookie mistake, not somebody that's played this game how many times Darrell has and being a 4-time champion of the challenge.
I mean, they even started out with a slight advantage because Troy took out too many bricks, so they had to build it up more in order to get the equation. And yeah, Darrell, maths is the great equalizer on a show like the challenge a lot of times. It's never really been an issue for Darrell in the past, but the fact that, even when he was doing the confessional talking head, like I was listening to him trying to math it out. I was like, wait, no, that's completely wrong. Even the way he was just going through it. There's some insight.
Yeah, so apparently he didn't do as bad, so maybe the edit made him look more goofy or behind than what he was. But it looked like, Troy, it looked like you guys were like, you already through the second drywall and you already had your puzzle done and they were still in the sand trying to figure out how to unlock the next section of the challenge. So it really did not do him any favors. Kiki going there saying, oh, luckily I'm here to keep him straight and help him out. It really did not do Darrell any favors, from an editing perspective. But the second part of this, daily, the elimination that was really fun was seeing Troy like go and try and smash through the wall and nothing happens because obviously Troy's not the biggest guy in the world. He doesn't have like the most weight behind him when he's smashing it. And you've got M like, did you guys test this beforehand? Everybody's wondering if they're actually going to get through it.
Yeah, Darrell even gets the assist from the wall and still not enough to keep Troy out. But yeah, that was great. That again, you do that thing, I'm sure everyone watching, where you think, how would I do in this challenge? And that was the one where I go, I would destroy that wall. Just any sort of info. Like, poor little Troy just bounced off it like you. I was like, oh man, that wall looked like. Yeah, I was worried that they didn't do the testing as well.
The editing was brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
Like you see Troy go boof, and then you just see them go to Casey and Troy's like, damn.
It looked like it potentially would have hurt a lot too. If you're coming at momentum and it's just a straight, hard, giving no bounce, nothing back to you, like boom, can't even crack it. I don't know how that would have felt.
I bet you. I was thinking in that moment, because you could see like Casey's trademark celebration that she's done since Big Brother, where she's like, "Let's go," and you get Troy in there as well. Let's go. He's doing her trademark celebration, and Troy can speak to this, but I'm sure the camaraderie and the friendship and the bond that you form as a duo, going down in the sand and having to perform and winning is like nothing else. Like I'm sure this builds friendship to no degree. Like you're like, wow, we've gone into the arena twice now. We've been in the sand twice and we've won twice. So, there's a lot of talk about Kiki being undefeated in the arena, 4-0. Troy now, I believe, sitting on 3-0. So he's also still undefeated in the arena. And it was going to take a champion to take another champion out down in the arena with the 2 Australian champions going head to head here. Well, in fact, there was 4 champions down there. That's the level of the elimination we had. We had Casey and we had Darrell who are champions as well. So it was really a heavyweight matchup, getting them all going head to head here. The other part that I really enjoyed as well was when Darrell was doing this math work and they showed like all the formulas and things in his head as he's explaining it. Like the editors of this show is amazing. And I've got to say, this is a bit of a hot take, but even though I come on here, I get frustrated by Tori and Jordan. I get frustrated about some of the legends and stuff like that. The challenge for me has been this season such a breath of fresh air. Like I've really, really enjoyed it to the point where I will say this challenge season for me has been more enjoyable than Survivor. And you know how big of a Survivor fan I am, but I really, really think that the challenge is doing a lot of things right. And a lot of that's also got to do with the fact that they keep it simple, stupid. The KISS principles. Keep it simple, stupid, where it is, this is what we're doing, this is the format, let the players play. Instead of Survivor, that's like putting people on a hamster wheel and just spinning it as fast as they can to confuse people in the middle of it, and relying on wacky gimmicks to do the show. So for me, this season of the challenge, it really has been a good show. So that's a credit to everybody that has gone out there and that have played this game as hard as they have.
That's the thing about the challenge, is that we've talked about sometimes when they have the daily challenges, they don't work, but they look epic, or they pick things that, we always appreciate that they take shots. They're innovating and they're pushing, and they don't keep it the same, whether it's format, whether it's, reaching out to all parts of the world, whether it's creating a global championship in and of itself is something that's not been done before. We've been begging for the Survivor, Australia, US, South Africa, like to bring a global championship for Survivor. The challenge went and did it, right? They put together 4 seasons of international competition immediately, all back to back, one thing, just so they can run the world championship. Then they try different formats, they try different things, and sometimes it doesn't work. But because they're pushing that envelope constantly, there are times when it gets pulled off perfectly and it works really well. And because of that pushing and that innovation they're trying to change, you get variance. You don't have the same boring thing all the time. And we see in our comments that 1.5 seasons of Tori and Jordan doing the same thing, people are already bored of it, because they're always changing, they're always pushing. And the fact that they can have that change, that dynamicism in their product, makes us have stuff to talk about. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, it's always going to be new and it's always going to be different. And you're right, that's something that we do love about the challenge.
Yeah. Troy is saying, I'm not going to lie, I thought it wasn't going to be too bad, but it was thick. I was like, I'll go through this, so no worries. And then Nick Minute is an Australian New Zealand slang for next minute. Yeah. So it definitely didn't go as planned on there. And then Maya saying the challenge is like an advanced Big Brother. You know what, Big Brother, it saddens me. At one point, I was such a big Brother fan, but I've just been so burned out by Big Brother since All Stars 2. I haven't really been able to get into it much. Like, maybe I'll, like, every season I'm like, I'll give the first 2 or 3 weeks a go. I'll see if I like it, and then normally I bounce out after that. It's been very hard to get back into Big Brother. I know Chantel from Reality Realness, I don't know if she's still in the live. She's a big fan of Big Brother and follows it very closely. And she wanted me to watch last season. I know who won last season, which is good, because I tuned out after that person got severely bullied on the show, and I was just like, this is not fun. I don't want to watch it. And yeah, it's become too predictable. I feel like Big Brother, just get one big alliance and they just run the game. The Nullified take, can you imagine Carolyn on the challenge? Carolyn on the challenge. Carolyn on any TV show would be fun. Like, she would be crazy fun. But I feel like on the challenge, because she would have to rely on her physical abilities, like, people will probably be like, we don't get you. And they'll probably throw her in very early on before they get to know her. And she would have to fight from the beginning. So I don't know if it would succeed. I don't know. Like, I reckon Carolyn should be on The Amazing Race next. I reckon that's what she should do with someone. I think that would be a lot of fun. Lena saying, "Oh my, I need Carolyn and King George as a team." That could be fun. That could be fun. But I do think that if you did have King George on there, why not King George and Simon? Because I feel like that would be funny. Get the two rivals on there.
Simon could very well do well on the challenge. If there was Challenge Australia 2, which it's probably not going to be, Simon could do well.
Simon,
on a show like that.
Simon actually would do pretty well. I actually think he would translate very well. There's a few Australian survivors that would do extremely well if they came over. Riley saying, let's have a quick look here. Riley saying, Casey and Troy, calmest people ever in eliminations. Yeah, they're just like, they're like one. They're like, I don't know if anybody ever watched Dragon Ball Z growing up, but Dragon Ball Z, when they did the fusion and you become like Goku and Vegeta and it becomes Gogeta. Yeah, that's Casey and Troy. What would you call them? Troycy. That's Troycy when they're out there. They're like one person. Team Troycy. We've got Before the Handicap saying, I'm not sure King George could do challenges. They'd kick him out personality-wise, but Simon could for sure. Yeah, I think King George, when I said King George and Simon would do well on the challenge, but King George and Simon in the Amazing Race would be fun. And I actually think they would complement each other pretty well. Even though I say that, but George has never really done anything puzzly wise as good. But he seems to. What I've heard from people that I've spoken to, like Jerry, and that is that he's extremely knowledgeable. So I'm sure he'll do like well with riddles and like
Amazing
stuff when he's
Race would be
traveling.
way better. Amazing Race more than the challenge. The type of challenges they do is probably more in his, field of being able to, like, it's still physical, but it's not like headbangers and stuff like that, which George would not do well in.
Yeah. Reality Realness says, I don't know if Carolyn could handle all the egos on the challenge. She'd be like, these bros. She would hate them. And she would like have to, if she gets annoyed, she would have to like go outside of the challenge house to go find some ground to put on her and like a rock to rub against the face. Like,
I tell you though, the producers would love her for confessionals. She would have all the confessionals.
Yeah. So we're seeing a few more comments coming in here. B4 Danicap says, yes, Carolyn on the Amazing Race and Yam Yam or Carson. Yeah, I'd watch that. Amazing Race would be a better fit. Reality Realness to say K Roy. This is going to become a thing now. We're gonna work out a name for them. Amaya saying Survivor people tend to struggle with politics and Big Brother. Jay and Michelle messed up. Yeah, I think on Ride or Dies, people have a very high view of Michelle because of the fact that she got to the end twice. And this sounds bad because I actually really like Michelle. I really do like her. But I don't think she's the biggest strategic mastermind. That's my hot take. I'd really think that people normally just don't see her as a threat and they take her deep into the game and then she wins towards the end, which is a strategy in itself. And Jay is like a chaotic player. He was a chaotic player even in Survivor. So I feel like you can't say that Survivor players won't do well based on those two players. And then Michaela as well. Michaela is a lovable, she's a fan favorite, but she wasn't the biggest strategist. She even got caught out for, similar to how she had the notebook, she was writing people's names down in the sand, trying to take notes, and people caught her for that. So she's too obvious. So if you get legends of the game, if you get good players of Survivor, they will be competitive. Like Sarah and Danny this season, they're doing a really good job, So it just depends on who you bring over. They seem to choose the wrong people from Big Brother, and they seem to choose the wrong people from Survivor when they bring them over to the challenge, in my opinion. Yeah, Traders are coming. So I'm really excited about Traders. Traders is getting its own New Zealand show, which is going to be cool. So I'd love to see, what they do in New Zealand with Traders, finding a competitive reality TV show again in New Zealand. So we'll cover that at some point as well. And we'll definitely be covering Traders Australia when that comes out, and hopefully the US as well. I heard that it's going to be a half and half season again. Chris saying Reality Real is too similar to Camroy. True. Yeah. I think we just call him Troycy. Troycy is the right way to go about it. Danny Cav says, well, she'd be making noises. People wouldn't know what that is. I have to put subtitles for her noises. Anyway, so we are getting to the end here of this live stream. Thank you, everybody, for your love and support and being here in the live and taking part in the conversation. It has been a lot of fun as usual. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you're considering doing so, I hope that today is the day that both myself and Kahuna earn that subscription, because with subscribing to this channel, you're helping us reach a wider audience. Please consider liking this video and putting the notification bell on so you can be informed the next time that we go to do this live. Plus, be on the lookout in the coming weeks. Kahuna, I know I've been hyping you up a lot, mate. You've got a lot to live up to. But Kahuna's going to have his own show here on the Nullified Take channel where he's going to be talking about $1 Million Island, Australia. So that's going to be exciting. So I'm sure there's ways you can find the episodes, and I think that will be a really good one. Cashwash, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate that. And we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.